He owned private jets, mansions, and billions in the bank. But when bankruptcy destroyed everything, his housekeeper Maria Johnson taught him the true meaning of wealth. What happened next shocked the entire business world and changed everything you think you know about success and money. Stay until the end to discover the 5 life-changing lessons this billionaire learned that could transform your view of success forever. I built my empire on code and calculations, convincing myself that numbers never lie. It started in my parents' garage in Palo Alto, the same garage where legends are supposedly born. My father was a Stanford professor, my mother a patent attorney. They gave me Ivy League education and connections that money could buy. By 26, I had an MBA from Harvard and 3 patents under my name. My first company flipped for $37 million. The second for $250. By 33, I was worth $2.7 billion, and everyone called me brilliant. I owned a 60,000-square-foot mansion with marble imported from Carrara, the same quarries Michelangelo used. 6 cars in the garage, each worth more than most people's homes. Private jets and penthouses scattered across continents like breadcrumbs of my success. I surrounded myself with yes-men and Harvard graduates, people who nodded at my every word and laughed at jokes that weren't funny. My calendar was packed with charity galas and board meetings, but I can't remember a single genuine conversation. Every relationship was a transaction, and I was always counting the cost versus the benefit. That's when I first saw Maria. She was mopping the floor in my study, moving slowly around my imported desk. I remember thinking she was taking too long, that I needed to speak to the management company about efficiency. "You missed a spot," I said without looking up from my Bloomberg terminal. She didn't respond, just quietly cleaned the area again. To me, she was invisible, just another expense on my staff budget, another line item in my overhead costs. See, when you're on top, everyone below becomes scenery. Maria brought me coffee every morning at precisely 6:30 a.m., memorized how I liked my eggs, noticed when I forgot to eat. But I never knew her last name, never asked where she lived or if she had family. She was just the help, and I treated her with the kind of polite indifference reserved for furniture that happens to move. Then the gods decided to teach me humility through a lesson I'll never forget. March 15th, a Tuesday, the day began like any other. I woke up on Egyptian cotton sheets, checked my portfolio before my feet hit the marble floor. But between my first sip of Kenyan coffee and my lunch meeting, the world tilted on its axis. Tech stocks plummeted faster than my ego could handle. Companies I'd invested in weren't just losing value, they were vanishing. My flagship AI venture, the one that made Fortune magazine's cover, was built on quicksand. Within 48 hours, my net worth dropped from $2.7 billion to nothing. Worse than nothing, the banks came calling for loans I'd leveraged against my guaranteed stocks. Bankruptcy papers arrived like death notices. My partners scattered like roaches when the lights come on. Friends stopped returning calls. My wife of 7 years packed her bags, saying she married a billionaire, not a failure. The charity boards quietly removed my name from their letterheads. Everyone who'd once hung on my words now ghosted my existence. The day arrived when I had to face my staff, 16 people who'd kept my life running perfectly, from the groundskeepers to the chef. I rehearsed the speech all night, professional, businesslike, no emotion. I'd give them 2 weeks severance and glowing recommendations. When I finally gathered them in the main hall, my voice cracked on the first word. Maria stood in the back, her usual quiet presence now feeling like a judgment. After I finished stumbling through my prepared words, they filed out one by one. Maria stayed behind. She approached me slowly, her eyes meeting mine for what felt like the first time. Instead of anger or disappointment, I saw something that unraveled me completely. Understanding. "Mr. Morrison," she said softly, "money lost can return. Character lost is gone forever. And from what I've seen, You haven't lost what matters most. Then she did something that broke me. She smiled and squeezed my shoulder before walking away. 3 days later, when I couldn't even afford Uber to the unemployment office, Maria knocked on my door. I'd already sold the Lamborghini to pay the staff their final checks, but couldn't bring myself to face them. She held a cloth bag filled with vegetables and homemade bread. "Everyone needs help sometimes," she said, her accent thick with the music of the Mississippi Delta. "And pride is a luxury nobody can afford." She walked me to the back of the mansion, to a place I'd never bothered exploring. A 1/4-acre garden she'd been tending for years. Tomatoes climbed wooden stakes, basil filled the air with its scent, and butterflies danced between flowers whose names I couldn't pronounce. "My grandmother taught me that soil teaches patience," Maria explained, showing me her calloused hands. "We can't force growth. We prepare, we plant, we wait, and we trust." That weekend, she invited me to her home. A small duplex in Long Beach she shared with her sister's family. 8 people in 900 square feet, yet it breathed with life in ways my mansion never had. Children's laughter echoed off walls covered with family photos, not original Warhols. Her nephew played guitar, while her sister stirred pot after pot of food for neighbors who dropped by uninvited but welcomed always. "In my neighborhood, we survive by sharing," Maria told me as we sat on her worn porch steps. "When Mrs. Rodriguez had surgery, everyone took turns watching her kids. When Mr. Kim's car broke down, we pooled money for repairs. When my cousin lost his job, we stretched our food stamps to feed his family too." She paused, studying my face. "Real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in how many people would feed you if you were hungry. How many would catch you if you fell?" That night, lying on her sofa bed as rain drummed on the roof, I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt safe without bulletproof windows or security systems. For the first time in 15 years, I fell asleep to the sound of human voices instead of stock tickers. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen by another person's eyes. Over the next few months, Maria became my teacher in subjects Harvard never offered. She taught me lessons that shattered everything I thought I knew about success. "Watch this," she said one morning, as we sorted through donations at the local food bank. A man brought in 3 cans of beans, probably all he had. Maria hugged him like he'd donated diamonds. "He keeps less so others can have more. That's true prosperity." Lesson 1 hit me like lightning. Real wealth isn't what you accumulate, but who would stand with you when you have nothing. Maria's network wasn't built on business cards or golf memberships. It was built on Saturday mornings, helping elderly neighbors with groceries, on midnight calls when someone needed a ride to the hospital. These weren't transactions. They were relationships forged through genuine care. Lesson 2 emerged as I learned their names, their stories, their struggles. In my old world, I knew everyone's stock portfolio, but nobody's pain. Here, I learned Mrs. Kim's eldest served in Afghanistan, that Johnny's mother was battling cancer, that Maria herself sent money back to Mississippi every month to support her aging parents and special needs sister. Community wasn't about networking. It was about knowing, truly knowing, the people around you. Simplicity became my unexpected sanctuary. Maria's morning routine consisted of instant coffee, not artisanal espresso. Her wardrobe held 5 work uniforms and 2 Sunday dresses. Yet she possessed a piece I'd never found in my 15 walk-in closets. "Too many choices create anxiety," she explained. "Too many possessions create worry. When you own less, life owns less of you." The most stunning lesson came when she gave her winter coat to a homeless teenager. It was her only warm coat. "Remember what I told you that first day?" she asked as we watched the girl wrap herself in warmth. "Character over cash, always. Money lost can be replaced. A soul gained cannot be bought. When you choose others over yourself, you find parts of yourself you never knew existed." I started spending dawn hours in Maria's garden, learning the difference between watering roots and drowning them. My Harvard-trained mind wanted spreadsheets for plant growth, but Maria taught me to read leaves like books, to listen to soil like music. You can't rush nature, she'd say, as I impatiently checked seedlings every morning. Trust the process, Mr. Morrison. Transformation happens underground before you see it above. Slowly, I shed the skin of who I used to be. Designer suits gave way to work boots and cotton shirts. I cleaned gutters with Jorge, helped rebuild fences with Mr. Jackson, learned to change oil with Tommy's dad. These men, who once worked on my cars while I ignored them, now taught me skills I'd deemed beneath my education. Their patience with my incompetence humbled me daily. Everyone starts somewhere, Tommy's dad said, watching me struggle with a wrench. The measure of a man is whether he keeps trying. Sunday dinners at Maria's became my new board meetings. Instead of quarterly projections, we discussed whose child needed tutoring, which family needed help with rent, how to support the community center's food program. I contributed my skills, setting up databases for food distribution, creating websites for local businesses, helping with tax returns. My Ivy League education finally served something beyond profit margins. The sweetest transformation came in conversations. I learned to listen without calculating responses, to speak without dominating discussions. Around Maria's kitchen table, I discovered that a grandmother's wisdom about raising children held more truth than any business psychology course. I found myself laughing at simple jokes, crying during neighborhood celebrations of new babies and funerals of old friends. One evening, sitting on Maria's porch as children played in the street, she observed me watching them with genuine interest. "Remember when you first arrived?" she asked. "You couldn't name one person who truly knew your heart. Look at you now, surrounded by people who'd miss you if you disappeared tomorrow." Then, on a Tuesday morning, 8 months after my fall, my old business attorney called. A tech startup I'd invested in during the early 2000s, one I'd completely forgotten existed, had just been acquired by Google. My 5% stake was now worth $600 million. The money would hit my account in 2 weeks. I told Maria first, expecting celebration. Instead, she studied my face with careful eyes. "Money tests character harder than poverty does," she said. "The real question, will you buy back who you were or become who you've learned to be?" For 2 weeks, I wrestled with decisions that would have been automatic before. First call, not to an investment manager, but to Jorge, asking advice about repairing the community center's roof. First purchase? Not a sports car, but paying off the mortgage of the family who'd helped me when I had nothing. I kept the same work boots, the same cotton shirts, the same rhythm of Sunday dinners. My returns were different this time. I bought the building where Maria lived, keeping rents affordable while upgrading the neighborhood. I established a genuine scholarship program, not for show, but funding 30 local kids through community college. Every business investment now required a community component: job training, local hiring, or supporting small businesses. The media took notice when I turned down a luxury car commercial for $1 million, choosing instead to appear in a public service announcement about community gardening, for free. When Forbes listed me as one of America's most generous philanthropists, they noted something unusual. My giving wasn't through fancy galas, but through quiet, sustained support of everyday people. The boardrooms I'd once coveted now felt hollow. Real power, I discovered, wasn't in commanding a room, but in lifting a neighbor. The wealth that mattered wasn't in portfolios, but in the tears of a single mother when I helped her start a small business. The empire I built this time had no buildings, just bonds between people who looked out for each other. Word of my transformation rippled through Silicon Valley, like a stone dropped in still water. CEOs started calling, seeking advice not on investments, but on living. The same people who'd idolized my wealth now found themselves drawn to something deeper. the peace they saw in my eyes, the purpose they heard in my voice. I started sharing Maria's wisdom in unexpected places. At a tech conference, instead of predicting market trends, I spoke about tending communities like gardens. Sustainable growth, I told a room of venture capitalists, means investing in people's lives, not just their productivity. The room fell silent, then erupted in questions that lasted hours. One CEO approached afterward. "I haven't felt this human in decades." Maria became something of a local legend. Media outlets tried interviewing her, but she declined, saying, "The story isn't about me teaching a billionaire. It's about two people learning from each other." Still, other wealthy business leaders sought her out. She welcomed them to community work days, teaching millionaires to plant vegetables next to recent immigrants. Our friendship deepened into something rare and beautiful. Maria still worked, not because I couldn't support her. I'd tried offering her anything she wanted, but because, as she said, purpose keeps us young, and my purpose isn't done. We met every Sunday at her sister's house for dinner, where tech executives now sat beside teachers and construction workers, sharing stories without status barriers. The greatest legacy wasn't measured in dollars donated or businesses built. It was in the changed culture I helped nurture. Morrison's Monday became tradition, the day when business leaders spent time working alongside their lowest-paid employees. The Community Capital Fund I established encouraged other wealthy individuals to invest directly in neighborhoods, not just charity events. Maria's influence spread through my example. Business schools started teaching values-based wealth management. Young entrepreneurs began defining success by community impact alongside profit. The narrative of what it meant to be truly wealthy began shifting, one story at a time. Today, 5 years later, I'm worth more than I ever was, but my wealth can't be counted in dollars. Maria still tends her garden, teaching another generation that soil teaches patience. Her nephew now runs his own carpentry business. Mrs. Kim's son finished law school. The neighborhood where she lives has transformed into a model of community support that city planners study. Last month, during our annual garden harvest, Maria pulled me aside. The Mississippi sun had weathered her face deeper, but her eyes still sparkled with that wisdom that first stopped me in my tracks. "You know what real wealth is now," she said, gesturing toward our friends sharing food and laughter. "It's knowing that when you plant seeds of kindness, you'll always have a garden to sustain you." She was right. When I lost everything, I thought I knew what wealth was. Yacht clubs, stock options, quarterly returns. But Maria taught me wealth is the sound of children playing in a garden you all built together. It's the warmth of shared meals on chipped plates. It's a community that catches you when you fall, not because you have money, but because you've become someone worth catching. This story isn't just about one billionaire who found true wealth. It's about discovering that the most valuable currency in life is the love we give and receive. Maria's wisdom changed my entire worldview, and it can change yours too. What will you do differently tomorrow, knowing that true wealth isn't in your bank account, but in how many hands are willing to hold yours when you need them most? Hit subscribe to hear more stories that will change how you see success. Share this video with someone who needs to remember what really matters. And in the comments below, tell me your definition of true wealth. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, like Maria teaches, we grow richer when we grow together.